Hello, everybody. Welcome to Global Hack Week, Cloud Week. And I am here to kickstart our Docker technical series. So thank you so much for everybody for coming. I do have a question posted on screen right now, though, if anybody can answer it for me. What is your favorite cloud hosting company? Please drop in chat. Let me know. Thank you so much for the shout. So we have Azure and AWS. AWS seems to be a very popular option. Azure as well. I like both of them. Personally, I like Azure a little bit more just because I have a certificate from them, but I do love AWS as well. And we got some love for GCP as well, so perfect. Thanks everybody for sharing. Let me get rid of this banner here. My recent favorite cloud hosting company is DigitalOcean though, and I'm going to demo using them. But you don't really have to use DigitalOcean. We'll jump into it in just a little bit. You can use any cloud hosting company of your choice. So let's get started. We do have Linode and DigitalOcean. Yes, I do love DigitalOcean stickers. Thank you so much for sharing. For those of you who don't know, my name is Wei. I am a coach here at Major League Hacking. A fun fact about me is I am studying to become an FAA certified pilot. Drone pilot, that is. Regardless, I still have to take an FAA test, all right? So I would call myself an FAA pilot. I get that certification. Anyways, my socials are on the left if you would like to connect with me. If you haven't already, let us check in. I'm going to post this link in chat so you get your points. Here it is. Be sure to check in and get your points. Now, this is the first part of my 5-part Docker series. If you kind of go through the list here, today we're going to learn about some Docker basics and installation. We're going to set up a cloud server, and we're going to install Docker on it. Later today, I think in 3 hours or so, I'm going to show you how to effortlessly deploy any app to your cloud server. This includes like a URL shortener, or maybe it's a form software. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. We're going to dive into some of the awesome open source projects out there that you can deploy on your cloud server. And Friday, I believe, I'm going to run a session on how to securely access your apps using your custom domains through Cloudflare. Cloudflare actually makes it super easy using Cloudflare Argo tunnels. It makes securing web apps specifically super nice and easy. You don't have to worry about getting a certificate yourself or setting up a web server or a reverse proxy or anything like that. And Sunday, I'm running 2 sessions. First, we're going to learn about how to Dockerize your website, maybe your portfolio website or your blog, and we're going to publish it onto a container registry like Docker Hub. And lastly, just before our closing ceremony, I'm going to show you how to build a CI/CD pipeline and automate deployment. So this is a very quick overview. I hope you're not lost yet. This is a beginner-friendly session, so don't be too discouraged. We're going to dive into some of these topics, hands-on experience, right? Cool. So what we're going to learn today is, first, we are going to create a cloud server. You can create a cloud server using any provider of your choice. Some of you mentioned Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, DigitalOcean. One of my favorite free provider is Oracle Cloud. They have a free tier, free forever. So that's also a very good option if you're looking. Specifically for DigitalOcean, if you are a student, definitely check out the GitHub Student Developer Pack. That is actually one of our challenges here. sign up for the GitHub Student Developer Pack. And once you sign up, be sure to sign up using this link. MLH has a special link arrangement with GitHub. If you sign up through this link, it makes verification so much easier and faster. So be sure to do that. And once you get the Student Developer Pack, and if you scroll down to all the amazing tools and credits that comes with, let's just pick cloud here. You will see some awesome providers like Azure, DigitalOcean, etc. So you'll be able to set up your account very easily with free credits. I'm going to use DigitalOcean. So if you haven't signed up already, be sure to sign up now and submit to get your points. So here is the link. I'm also going to post that in the chat for any students out there. GitHub Student Developer Pack. Okay. Be sure to sign up and get your global hack week point. All right. Can we get a link to the PowerPoint? I will share the link to the PowerPoint at the end of the session, and I will actually use the same PowerPoint and add to it as we go through our 5-part technical track. Cool. So if you haven't already, be sure to sign up for that. And we're going to go into our workshop with DigitalOcean in a little bit after we talk about some Docker basics and an introduction to Docker. We're going to install Docker super easily. And we're going to run a Hello World application using Docker. And at the end of the session, we're going to install a tool or a container management tool called Portainer. That is an open source project that makes managing Docker containers so easy, especially for beginners. All right, with that, let's dive into it. Oh, that's a little bit too quick, jumping in right into Q&A. I am going to reuse another slideshow here, and we'll just run through some of the Docker basics together. Here it is. I'm going to maximize here. Perfect. So, intro to Docker. I know some of y'all have gone to Siddharth's session earlier, intro to cloud, and he mentioned something about virtualization, how VM hypervisors work. Docker is a little bit different, but along the same lines. We'll see some graphics towards the end. We'll go through some of these slides here very quickly. I don't want to bore you, and then we'll jump right into workshops. Okay. But if you don't have a cloud server already, be sure to sign up with your Azure or DigitalOcean so that we can follow along after we go through the introduction. Yes, Oracle Cloud is free. I still have 2 of their servers, so highly recommend you check it out. Python, we are using Python. We're not writing any code today, actually, so we're safe. Okay, so introduction to Docker. We're going to talk about containerization, virtualization, and Docker images. And we'll just run through this slide real quick. I know it goes into a little bit deeper than what I'm hoping to get into. But here is an example graphic that you may have seen at the Siddharth session. Here is a typical VM, right? You have a server. Host OS is basically a physical server typically. And that runs a host operating system and has a hypervisor that manages multiple virtual machines. And each virtual machines have guest operating system in them. So maybe this is a Windows, maybe this is a Linux operating system, maybe this is a different distribution of Linux operating system. So yeah, as you can see here, this is kind of the traditional virtualization technology. And here is the containerization. And if you compare between the two, what do you notice? There's no more guest OS. Do you notice that? Hypervisor is replaced by a container engine, and there is no more host or no more guest operating system within each container, right? So that makes containers so much more lightweight, because each container used to have to run operating system processes and things like that. A lot of overhead. With containerization, that is all abstracted away. You don't have to do any of that, because the container engine and the host OS will handle that. We have a question in chat here. Can we use Oracle Cloud since it is free? For sure, you can definitely use Oracle Cloud. When you sign up, you just have to, I believe you have to provide a credit card. So just double check there. Okay, so here's a quick memory usage comparison chart. I won't go into too much detail, but let me just keep going here. As you can see here, on the left, 3 VMs might be taking 100. Is this 100 gigabytes of memory? But if you're using Docker, you might only be taking 30 gigabytes of memory, right? Much more lightweight and performant. So that is the advantage of containers, right? Highly recommend checking out containers, especially if you are looking to deploy in the cloud, which is what we'll be doing. I won't go into this slide too much, but let's jump to the next topic, which is a quick Docker introduction. As we mentioned, this is kind of the architecture. You have the physical or host operating system, you have the Docker engine, and you have different containers with the binaries, libraries, as well as the application code and runtimes. Docker is a container management system. You can develop, ship, and run anywhere using Docker. So Docker makes it so easy, because you can run Docker on your computer when you're developing. You can run Docker when you're building and testing. And you can run Docker containers in production. And they are essentially guaranteed to be the same across operating systems and across servers. So highly recommend it. And Docker engine, here's the Docker engine, and you can use it on Linux, Windows, or OS X, and they will all work the same pretty much. And I won't go into too much detail there. And next, let's talk about Docker images and containers very briefly. Okay. Docker images are basically templates used to create containers. And containers, you can have multiple containers that run the same Docker image, essentially. So if you have one web server, you can, one web server Docker image, maybe, you can run 10 containers of that same web server and spread out the load, just as an example. And Docker registry, container registry, is what I was referring to earlier. That's where you publish your images so that you can pull it from anywhere, maybe on your server, maybe on your development machine, and things like that. Okay. So here's a quick architecture. Here's the registry. You can pull images and run containers. From images, you can create multiple containers, and you can have on your computer using your client, you can control the Docker engine or the Docker host using different commands. We don't have to really get into all that, because we are a beginner-friendly session. Quiz time, we won't go into the quiz. So let's exit out of that. How's that for a quick overview? If you have any questions, let me know, because I am a proponent for Docker. I love it. I use Docker on all my Oracle Cloud servers, as well as some of the other physical servers that I have bought. So they make deployment so easy. Cool. All right, so first we're going to create a cloud server. That is our plan, right? If you don't already have an account, please sign up. You also have some time to do it after the session. Okay, we have a question here. What are the functions of Docker image and containers? Okay, Docker image holds application code, application source code, for example. So if I have my portfolio website, I can package it into a Docker image, almost like burning it onto a disk CD maybe. And I can run that from multiple servers. So I can run my packaged web server locally on my computer by pulling the Docker image and spinning up a Docker container from that image. I can also run that through the CI/CD process. If I need to test anything in my code, I can also run it in production to serve production traffic. So that's a quick overview of the differences between Docker image and containers, as well as their functions. All right, please chat if you have any questions. Let me just switch up the banner here. There it is. Thank you so much for your question. So now, let's go to DigitalOcean. This must look familiar to you if you have ever used DigitalOcean, because this is their dashboard, right? DigitalOcean has their special names for everything. And one of the things they do is they call virtual machines droplets. So cloud servers, virtual machines, droplets, all the same thing. So what we're going to do is create a droplet. Okay, they actually have a description here that says create cloud servers. So that helps. Create cloud servers. Perfect. Okay, and for this session, I'm just going to pick New York as the region I'm going to create my droplet in, but feel free to create a droplet or the cloud server in any region of your choice. Ideally closer to you so that it's faster for you to connect to. Now, I'm going to leave everything the default. I'm going to use the default operating system, Ubuntu 23.10. That sounds good. And I'm just going to pick the regular SSD for my CPU options. And for the purpose of the session, I'm going to pick the $12 a month option. Okay. So just to recap, we are creating a droplet in New York, leaving all the defaults. Operating system Ubuntu 23.10, basic droplet type, and a regular $12 a month plan here. And for the authentication method, for now, I am just going to use a password just to make it easy. Cannot end in a number or special character. Man, they make it hard, don't they? Let me just figure something out. One uppercase letter. I thought I had one. Okay, that's too difficult, so let me just use a password generator. All right, here it is. That's better. Please remember the password for me in case I forget. Yeah, here it is. That works. Great. All right, while it's creating, let me look in chat here. Thank you so much for answering the questions and engaging in chat. Instead of using npm install, we use Docker images. Okay, yeah. So Docker images will have typically will have all the dependencies that you need to run your application. So when building the Docker image, you would be running npm install. And think of it as like you're zipping up your whole project folder after you run npm install. And then when you need to run the project, all you have to do is to start it, right? And the process of starting it is basically creating a container from your Docker image. Hope that helps. All right, we have a great question here. Is Amazon S3 bucket similar to Docker? They are quite different. You can think of S3 bucket as a hard drive. So you're just storing files into it, and you're retrieving files from it. That's all what AWS S3 does. Okay, there's no like running the application in, but with Docker, you can actually package entire applications in it. So it's a little bit different. Okay, what is the difference between Docker images and containers? Docker images are here. Let me go back to my slides and see if I can find the section where they talk about images and containers. Here it is. Okay, Docker images are templates used to create containers. Okay, so they are not running anything inside. They're just, think of it as somebody mailing you a disk, right? And then in order to run the disk, you need to copy the disk down and run what's in the disk to create an instance, all right? Running instance, running an application. So that is kind of the relationship. You have a template, and from that template, you can run the applications within the Docker image, and the running instance or instances are now called Docker containers. Hope that helps. For sure, you can use Docker and Terraform together. That's actually a very popular way to manage Docker. So I highly recommend you check it out and learn more about it. Okay, so I hope that clears it up. Give me a thumbs up if it makes a little bit more sense, the differences between Docker images and Docker containers. Cool. Let's just check back. All right, thank you so much for the thumbs up. Not yet. If you have any specific questions, please ask in chat. Like, what is confusing you? I'd be happy to help. All right, so please make sure you have created a cloud server. So we are working on cloud servers. Regardless of which provider you're using, be sure to create a cloud server, just like I have. I recommend 2 GB of memory just so that you can run more applications, but you can definitely live with 1 GB of memory as well. So on DigitalOcean, it's actually very easy to access the terminal. So depending on the platform you're using, I don't know, they might have different ways of you SSH maybe into the machine or accessing the terminal of the machine. But on DigitalOcean, you can just go to Access and launch Droplet Console. They make it so easy. Let me stop sharing and share my whole screen so that you can see the other window as well. Screen 2, there it is. Okay. So all I did was I clicked Launch Droplet Console, and it gave me a web console connecting to my virtual machine, my cloud server. And if I do a uname, you can see that I am running a Ubuntu machine. All right, perfect. All right, we have a question in chat. Tintin, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to another round of Global Hack Week sessions. The session plan is right here. So we are going to first create a cloud server. We just did our introduction to Docker. We're going to install Docker right now, actually, and we're going to run a Hello World application. And lastly, we are going to install Portainer to our cloud server so that we can easily manage containers. Reference sources and links will be shared at the end. So for now, just follow along. I don't know if you have access to this, but please give me a thumbs up if you can see the terminal of the cloud server. It could be one that you have used before, or if you just created one, doesn't really matter. You can even use your local computer. So if you're on a Windows or Mac OS or Linux, you can install Docker locally as well. So we'll jump into it right after this. Let me pull up. All right, thanks for the thumbs up. Do let me know if you need a little bit more time. We do have some time to spare. So let me pull up my notes here. Let's go to the Docker installation guide. And Docker has a very cool website. I thought it's docker.io, maybe not. So let's just Google install Docker. And we have this link here. Let me just paste it in chat. Install Docker. Thanks for the thumbs up. Okay. So you can install Docker here. If you don't have a cloud server right now, don't worry, you can install Docker Desktop on your computer as well. And actually, everything I'm going to mention today will work on your computer. You don't even need a server to host your application. You can just use your computer. So download Docker Desktop if you want to do it on your computer. And if you want to install on your virtual private server, which is my cloud server here, all we have to do is use a short command here, and Docker will actually install everything for us, all right? Docker engine. So they have a script called get.docker.com, looks like. Okay. And if you look at the code here, this is just a bash script that installs Docker engine on Linux distributions, various Linux distributions. Requires sudo or root to run. And it actually makes it so easy with the usage block here. So we're going to follow this, and we're going to install this on our server. We have a question on what are the required resources. So you need a computer. Ideally, if you already have an account, I recommend creating a cloud server on your cloud provider's account so that you have an isolated server to work with. But you can also just install Docker Desktop on your local computer and follow along. All right, with that, let's just kind of run this script here and see what happens. We are going to download the script first. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay. And I'm going to just straight to step 4 for now, because I don't really care about verifying the script or dry run, right? So I'm going to run the script as root. Okay, so it's really just 2 lines. I'm going to share that in chat here. Get Docker and run. So really just 2 lines, and I'm going to hit run. And what this is going to be doing is install Docker. This is a one-liner to install Docker engine on your Linux computer or your cloud server. Here they are. And let me just take a quick break, get some water here while we wait for this installation. If you have any questions, just message them in chat. This will, of course, work with Fedora. There should be no issues whatsoever. Okay, so here's one catch. Depending on your cloud provider, you might not always be the root user. right? And if you want to run Docker using a regular user that's not root, then you might want to go through this step to allow installing or allow running interacting with Docker from a non-root user. But for us, we do have root, so we're not going to worry about it. Yeah, the file name is, I think you're missing a dot there, but it's very close. And the file name is going to be install docker.sh. That is the file name that will be downloaded if you run this command. Okay, any questions? Please let me know in chat. I would love to help you out. I'm going to close this for now. And we'll kind of go back to our session plan here. All right. In the meantime, let's explore Docker Hub. I mentioned in the slides, there's a thing called container registry, and that's actually where people can upload their Docker images. All right. Remember, Docker images are templates of applications you want to run, right? So let's go to Docker Hub and just check it out. What are some cool container images that people have been shared? Let me just go to explore. Okay, looks like we have Alpine. That's very popular. This is actually a minimalistic Linux distribution. It's very, very popular amongst Docker users. We have Nginx, which is a very, very popular web server. And Python, Ubuntu, Redis. So these are all very popular Docker images that have been published on the Docker Container Registry Docker Hub. We have a question here. Do you recommend installing Docker on Ubuntu? For sure. Docker works great on Ubuntu, and that's actually what I am using. So if you remember when I created my droplet, I chose Ubuntu 23.10 as the release version. Okay, and if you keep scrolling down the list here on the Docker Hub, you'll see a ton of very, very useful, maybe familiar applications like MySQL for database, MongoDB, Node, right? Node.js, runtime. Oh, and we do have a hello world as well. So let's go into the hello world Docker image. Has everything started? Yes, we have started, but since you are on YouTube, you can rewind back to the beginning and you can follow along. All right. So here's a hello world. If you have installed Docker, what is the best way to tell if it's working? I would say it is to run hello world. All right. So let's try to run this. Let me scroll down here. Okay, it should print out hello world. Sounds good. Cool. All right. So the first step is to pull the hello world image, the Docker image from Docker Hub. And Docker Hub makes it super easy. They even have a copy icon here. Makes it easy for you to copy. All right. And all I have to do is, where is my other window here? Here's the other window. All I have to do is to Docker pull hello world. And by running this command, you're just joining. Don't worry too much. Let me know if you have a cloud server already. If you do, I will give you a command to run. But otherwise, I recommend signing up for a cloud server, maybe using GitHub Education Pack. It comes with Azure and Droplets from DigitalOcean. Hello World is indeed the best testing, so thank you so much for pointing that out. I agree. So this is the command we're running, docker pull hello world. And once you pull it, you should see a message here. It says pull complete. And a digest. Here is the digest of the Docker image that we pulled. If we go back to hello world here, you should be able to see a ton of digests here. And based on your operating system architecture, you're pulling, or Docker is smart enough to pull the Docker image that matches your platform. And I'm not quite sure which one I have. I'm not too worried about it, but the gist is Docker will automatically handle that for you. Do you just interact with the Docker through the command prompt? No. The short answer is no. We are going to use Portainer, which is going to be a web-based Docker management GUI. But just for the hello world, we're going to run some very, very simple Docker commands to just make sure Docker is actually running. Okay. So if we go down to the example output here, this is the command we need to run hello world. Makes it super easy. Docker run hello world, right? Okay, Docker run hello world. And boom, looks like we do have a cool output here that matches what the example is. Hello from Docker. And yeah, has everything we need. Perfect. So this means Docker is working perfectly on our cloud server. Docker has a very useful command called docker ps. This will show us all the containers that are running. And as you can see, there's no containers are running right now. But if you supply the -a flag, which means all, it will show all the containers that are stopped as well. And you can see hello world was indeed created 42 seconds ago. And we just exited 41 seconds ago. So it just printed out this output and exited. Some Docker containers might run, stay running for a long time, especially for things that are like a web server or like a long-running application. So they won't exit automatically. But for hello world, the only purpose is to print out a message and exit. That's why it's gone. So yeah, thanks for the message here. You do use Azure. So the first step I would do is to create a Azure virtual machine if you haven't already. And I recommend Ubuntu. So any of the recent versions should work fine. Okay, now that we have concluded our Docker is running correctly, we should be good to go to our last step, install Portainer, which is a web-based Docker management GUI. But before then, I would like to answer any questions. If anybody needs a little bit more time, just let me know. In the meantime, I think there is a very fun Docker image I was playing with before. Let me see if I can find it. You might like it. Docker. Okay, all right, we do have a question here. Is it recommended to use Docker locally? I highly recommend using Docker locally for local development as well, as long as your computer supports it. I wouldn't recommend doing it on a laptop just because Docker uses a lot of system resources. But if you're using like a powerful desktop, I highly recommend it because Docker makes local development so easy. You can have different environments for different applications. And when you package it up and deploy it on GitHub or using a container registry and eventually maybe deploying on your cloud server, Docker makes it so easy and smooth. All right, can we use Docker in a hypervisor virtual machine on a workstation, this operating system as Ubuntu, Windows, etc.? You can. So I know I showed a picture earlier about the difference between a virtual machine and containers, right? Let's just go back and revisit real quick. As you can see, a virtual machine has a whole guest operating system, whereas Docker does not, containers do not. You can actually run container engine on top of a guest operating system. So if you think about what we're doing, DigitalOcean has a host operating system that's probably a very, very powerful physical computer. They're running hypervisors, and they're giving everybody a virtual machine, right? So for me, I have a droplet that is essentially a virtual machine that is running Ubuntu 23.10, right? That is my guest operating system. And within that virtual machine, I am then stacking Docker on top of it, right? Now I am running a container engine on top of my guest operating system inside my virtual machine, and then I'm running containers and Docker engine on top of that. So in a way, that's exactly what I am doing. So thank you so much for asking and pointing it out. All right, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for coming. Don't worry, this is just the first of our 5 Docker sessions. If you would like, you can wait till this is over or go to YouTube and you can rewind to the beginning of the session and follow along. So what I wanted to show you was this cool Docker image that I was looking at before. It is a neon cat command line. It renders a neon cat right on your terminal, right? So while we wait for any questions, let's try it and see what happens. Let's pull this image and see if we can run the neon cat inside our terminal. We're going to pull it, and we're going to use Docker run, and we're going to copy this image name. And I think something we have to do is to run it as an interactive terminal. So there you go. We now are running a neon cat inside a Docker container. So just something fun to look at. Thank you so much for coming to my session. Don't worry. Definitely catch the replay and join my next one. Yeah, I mean, this is probably going to be one of the more expensive NFTs out there. I would love to have a Bulhaj container if you can make it. Definitely let me know. Can you have 18 plus Docker images? I don't know what that means. You can have as many Docker images as you want, but I don't know what exactly you're referring to. Okay. with that, let's just jump to the last step of our session plan, which is install Portainer. This is in preparation for our next session, which is where we will explore all kinds of amazing open source software out there that you can run yourself on your server. You can save a lot of money by using them instead of using paid options or subscription-based options out there. All right, so let me share a resource link for Portainer real quick. Let me grab here. This is the installation page, but let's first look at the official website, look at their official website homepage. So you can see here, we have deploy containers, platform management, and all kinds of like enterprise level features as well. But for the most part, we're going to use it to manage, deploy containers using a web user interface. And the link I sent in chat has the Portainer server. So all you have to do is to click Portainer, install Portainer CE, which is the community edition with Docker on Linux. If you are on Windows, definitely check out some of the other options, but for now we're going to do Linux. And here are some instructions, which we probably don't need to go through in too much detail. Let's just go through the deployment steps together, and that should be all that's needed. So the first we need to do is to create a Docker volume that will be used to store Portainer database. Docker volumes are, you can think of it as hard drives that you can plug into. So the hard drives will not be wiped anytime you stop a container, right? The data is going to be persisted safely. So we're going to run that real quick, create a Portainer data volume, and we did exactly that with just one command. And then all we have to do is to run this second command here that runs Portainer on the following ports. So I'm just going to do a copy and run. Since we haven't run Portainer before, it is going to grab the latest Portainer image and run it on the server. And with just 2 lines, that is all. It is now installed and running. So you can see how easy it is to install an application, like even like an enterprise level application in just 2 lines, right? Makes it super easy. And if you want, you can just double check by running the docker ps command I was showing you earlier to make sure it is running correctly. And as you can see here, Portainer is indeed running, created 32 seconds ago, still running, and it's listening to all these ports. Okay, do let me know if you have any questions or any trouble with this. Once you have this running, we just need to go to the last step, which is logging in and initial setup of Portainer. And since we are using a cloud server, if you're doing it locally on your computer, you should just be able to use this directly, localhost 9443. But since I am using a cloud server, I need to use the IP address for that. And I can grab the IP address by going to my droplet page, and here is my IP address. And I can go to HTTPS 9443. So by default, Portainer is going to use a self-signed certificate, which means it's going to use HTTPS. But the certificate is not recognized by your browser, which is why you're seeing this warning. And all you have to do is to proceed and ignore the warning. And since this is my first time setting up Portainer, I'm just going to put my username I'm going to create a password. Okay. And create user. And I am in. This is the Portainer Community Edition that makes it super easy to manage containers. All right, I have connected to my local environment, local Docker environment to Portainer, and I can just get started. This is pretty slick here. This is my local Docker environment, as you can see, and I can connect to it, live connect. And inside here, you can see some statistics of all the Docker images I have and the containers that I have. We look at images I have, you'll see I have a hello world, I have the neon cat, and I have the Portainer CE. Those are the 3 images that I have been playing with, right? And if I go to containers, you can see I have 1 hello world container that's exited. We have 2 neon cat containers that I have exited, and we do have our Portainer that is still running. So yeah, Portainer makes it super easy to visualize and manage your Docker engine. Let me know if you have any questions. We will jump into a lot of these features later in a couple hours. In my next session, Docker 102, we will be exploring various open source projects. We're going to be exploring Portainer to see how easy it is to deploy production level software with just some clicks. You don't even have to write any code. Okay. In the meantime, feel free to play around with Portainer dashboard. It has stacks, containers, images, app templates, and more. So we'll probably be exploring app templates later on, but yeah, that is Portainer. How does that sound, everybody? All right, so I think we've accomplished a lot of this session. So thank you so much for bearing with me. Yeah, the dashboard is dope. It has tons of features. Portainer is one of the more established player in that space. There are some new ones coming out, but I still use Portainer quite a bit. I've been using it from the beginning. So thank you so much for your feedback. As always, if you have any questions, just ask in chat. I would love to help you out with anything you need. And I would just like to go back to our slides and give you some key takeaways this session. So during this session, you learned about Docker basics. You learned about what a Docker engine is, what a Docker container is, the difference between Docker container and Docker images. You also learned about the difference between virtual machines and containers. So those are super helpful, useful information to have. You also learned about how to create a cloud server. So in my example, I used DigitalOcean, but you can create a cloud server from anywhere, any cloud provider of your choice, and connect to it through SSH to get access to the terminal. And lastly, we installed Docker on your cloud machine and installed Portainer to manage it. We ran Hello World and the Neon Cat command line animation, which is always very fun to see. So that's a lot of the things that you did this session. I hope to see you in the next session. Let me just grab the link to the next session in case you would like to register. And where is the link? Here it is. I do have my second session coming up, and here is the link if you would like to check in and register. And I did promise to share the slides with you, right? So I'm going to paste it in chat right now for anyone wanting to see all the resources that I have. Slides, here it is. Yeah, and if you got stuck, please feel free to rewatch parts of this video. I know setting up a cloud server from the beginning could take a long time, so feel free to set it up on your own, and afterwards install Docker using just like one or two simple commands. And I also installed Portainer with just 2 simple commands as well. So if you'd like to run those locally, you can do it on your computer, or you can do it on your cloud server. So different options. And lastly, I would like to thank you everybody so much for coming to Global Hack Week, Cloud Week, and coming to my Docker series. I would love to see you at my next session. Thank you so much, and we'll see you.